There's an issue I haven't really heard anybody talk about too much. I think it's out there somewhere, like somebody talked about it. But I think it has to be more mainstream. Like a lot of ideas are just not sexy, like fucking Philip DeFranco would say. They're just fucking boring as fuck. But I feel like some ideas are very important and people just don't understand them or don't talk about them. Or it's just like, and the issue here has got to be like, kind of a little bit like an Inception kind of thing, right? Because the issue the way that I'm gonna talk about the issue is the issue, right? So it's a little weird. It's a little fucking complicated, I guess, right? So, but you'll understand it once I say it, and then you probably feel like, oh shit, like I knew that or it makes sense or whatever, but. It's just a different way to think about it, right? I think it helps. So here's what happens, right? Like I'm an engineer at heart, like I like to fucking like just find new ways to do shit, right? Like I always say there's two ways of doing things, right? So you either get better at the thing that you're doing, and then so you just get better at the skill. Or just find a better way to do it, and then you don't have to get better at the original fucking way that you completed the test. You just find a more efficient way, which takes less work, right? And you're doing the same amount of output, And so what happens is I try to engineer my vocabulary, the words that I use, to have a better meaning or a better definition, right? Obviously, the words, they have different definitions sometimes, like 2 or 3 of them, right? And so then what will happen is, in context, you will just be able to tell which of the definitions is the one that person is using. And if you can't, and if you have the chance, you'll ask them, like, hey, I didn't understand this. What's the definition you're using here, right? Because sometimes what will happen is there's something called in logic, right, a fallacy of equivocation, right, which you'll use a word in your premise, and then you'll use the same word in your conclusion, but that's a little technical, right? But the definitions for both of those, the same word that you're using a different definition in the premise and a different definition in your conclusion. Still the same word, right? But it completely changes the dynamic of what you're trying to say, right? Like it renders your argument invalid or fucking not sound or whatever, right? Validity talks to structure, soundness talks to I don't know, I guess fucking like reality. Anyways, it's not the point of this conversation. I guess that would be a whole other fucking thing, right? That would have to talk about. Still, what happens is you're just switching definitions mid-argument, and so it's the same word, but sometimes you do it on purpose because you're a fucking piece of shit. You're trying to convince someone of something, right? Or sometimes you don't want to do it unconsciously just because you're ignorant about it. You really don't know. And ignorant has a negative connotation, but it's not, because everybody's ignorant about something, right? So it's just try not to think about it in a negative way. Ignorant just means that you are ignoring this bigger fact or this truth or this other fucking piece of information that you don't have, right? So, given this thing that happens, right, that we both agree, I'm pretty sure, that there's different definitions for different words, and that sometimes, you'll use different definitions of words mid-argument, and even though you're using the same word, and then it just throw you off or throw the other person off, and then maybe, like, it just creates this fucking this problem in the communication of the idea that you're trying to fucking present. So the way I think about words, and the way I'll fucking try to change them, right? Because and that's a big issue, right? Like, why would I change my definitions, right? Because if I change my definitions for the words that I'm using, whenever I use those words with somebody that has a different definition altogether, then we will not be able to communicate, and we will disagree about something, right, that we probably agree on, just because to that person it doesn't make sense what I'm saying, because the word that I'm using is a different meaning for them, right? Different definition, right? And here's the other shit the other thing that I've heard someone say. I'm not gonna say names, right? But so this person says words have usages, not meanings, right? They have definitions, which is part of the usage part, right? But they don't have like inherent meaning, like this is just the way the word is, and that makes sense because we make the words. we put the words and we create them to for a certain thing, and then over time they get used however people are gonna use them, and they change them, right? Which is essentially the thing that I'm talking about. So the way that I'm gonna grab my words and change the definition is so that it's more accurate, right? So, and then more accurate in what way, right? So because I want my words to have a definition that encompasses like really what the word actually is. Because sometimes there'll be mud in the fucking word, right? In the definition you're using, like, because it'll encompass things that it's not supposed to encompass, right? Like it's extra baggage that the word does not really have, which is like the connotation kind of thing, right? But so. And it's kind of, I guess it's kind of me like just trying to blend all the definitions together and just have a very good one, right? For like a bigger concept. But I'm aware there's other definitions for that word. So for instance, we'll go with this is the easy one, I think, because it's the one that I just give us an example all the time. So the word problem, right? Like I define problem as an obstacle, and then it's an obstacle, a specific kind of obstacle that is between you and a goal that you have, right? So if you have a goal and there is an obstacle between you and that goal because you have a plan to get there, then that obstacle becomes a problem, right? And a problem is always an obstacle, but an obstacle is not always a problem, right? So because there could be an obstacle on the road, right? But if you're not traveling on that road, that fucking tree or whatever bullshit that's on there, it's still an obstacle, but it's not a problem, right? It becomes a problem when you're trying to fucking cross the fucking that road, right? And then that shit's in your way, right? That's when it becomes a problem. And if you're walking, you just fucking jump over it or go around it or whatever, right? Like, that's how you overcome that obstacle, and then now it is no longer a problem, right? And then that would apply to anything that you would call a problem in life, right? And the way that I go about making this definition, right, was try to, and this is what people don't understand too in science, right? Like, you don't try to make the prediction or the hypothesis that you have be right? you don't test it by fucking by always assuming that you're correct, right? And then just fucking go about it that way. So what you will do is you will try to fucking find ways that it can be wrong, right? Like find things that will render it false, right? Your hypothesis that will render your hypothesis false. That's how you're gonna try to falsify it. That's how you're gonna test it. Because you can't test it the other way around. You know, I mean, you could, but there would be like maybe many instances in which that the definition for the word problem that I use will work, right? But the way that I would test it is try to falsify it, trying to find ways in which that definition doesn't work, right? Where okay, this is an obstacle, but see, it's not a, like, you know, this is a problem, but it's not really an obstacle, you know, like something like that. And so I'll look for that, right, and try to falsify that. And so sometimes I think it's good that people talk to each other and disagree, and then they kind of, you know, they kind of talk it out, you know, and they look at the other person's point of view, right? And then usually what happens is eventually they'll start to understand what one person is saying, and then what usage of the word they're applying to the thing that they're fucking talking about, right? And then define their concepts a little better, right? And that's because they're using different words with different meanings and different definitions. And so at the end of the day, they might agree, you know, but in order to get there, they have to provide the evidence that they're thinking about the same thing, you know. And so that's communication right there. That's putting my idea that I have in my head in your head, right? So you are able to see what I'm looking at. And then so just before, you know, and I think this can help in a practical way, right? In the real world, it's just think about the fact that this person might be using a different definition for that word. So just be able to define the words that you're using, because they matter, you know, like in the bigger picture, you trying to convey that concept. But what could happen though is that their definition is just not very good, right? Like the definition they're using for that word encompasses like other fucking 3 or 4 words, and now it's like a bigger thing where you don't, like, they're committing this fallacy of equivocation left and right the whole time they're speaking, and they're trying to convey this fucking message, right? And they might be doing it purposely to obscure the message in a way that they just sound like they know what they're talking about, or they sound like they can't be refuted, you know. And then that would be a bigger issue where you would have to go and dissect that, right? But and then it would be hard for people to follow you through that, because it's like a fucking it's like trying to untangle a fucking knot that like is just fucking like crazy, you know, like a fucking charger back in the day, you know, like get all tangled up, or like fucking headphones get all tangled up, and you're just trying to fucking untangle this shit, and then people are not gonna follow you through that, you know, and so it's gonna be hard. And so that's why this tactics actually work like pretty well to untangle people's minds into believing some dumb bullshit, right? And I don't want to say people are stupid. It's just the cost benefit, the opportunity cost of them having to spend all this time trying to fucking find this truth or go about their day and do what they actually need to fucking do. You know, it's not beneficial to them. Maybe. I think it is. I would say net time or net whatever at the end. You know, you're gonna you spending the time to trying to understand some things, right, will it's like you'll harvest, you know, some good out of it at the end of the day. You know, like I think for the rest of your life, if you learn one thing, you know, like it'll just permeate into everything that you think, and it'll just make your thinking better. I have an issue. I like to overanalyze everything, and then the other way is that when I say overanalyze, it's just that you analyze things to a point where you're just wasting time, and it's not practical. But you can't analyze too much. That's not a thing. It's like, you keep analyzing, that's fine, you know, it's whatever, bro. It's like, it's not like, oh, you're gonna analyze to a point where it's not really true. You know, that's not how it works. So then that would be, for me, a better definition of overanalyze, right? And see, so what I'm doing there is the same thing, right? And maybe, you know, it takes time, and then people don't want to do this, right? But here's what I think is of value, right? Is to be able to communicate with people and be able to come to an agreement. Because, you know, to be honest, like, I'm gonna be real, like, and I don't know if I can prove this to you, like, or anybody, but we all live in the same fucking reality, like, whether you like it or not, you know, like, well, I got my own world, you know, like, yeah, like you got your own worldview, but like it's like that one example I give is like rat poison, right? So if you fucking drink rat poison or some fucking kind of fucking bullshit, right? That's gonna fucking kill you, right? Like you're not fucking just because you don't think it's gonna kill you. Like, oh, that's not what I think. It's not my fucking opinion. It's not my belief that I think that shit's gonna kill me. Like, that shit's gonna fucking kill you, bro. Like, it doesn't fucking matter what you believe or what your fucking opinion is, right? Like, it's fact. It's fucking reality. It's truth. You know, like fucking electricity works one way, right? Doesn't matter what you think about it or not. You know, like your fucking mind's not gonna change that shit. Electricity works the same for everybody. So, and that's the other thing about science. You know, science is like that. Like it'll tell you, like things that we can objectively, you know, have a good reason to believe, right? I'm not saying science is perfect. I'm not saying that we've. And that's the whole epistemology thing that I talked about before, right? Just go look into that shit. It's a long fucking video too. But all I'm gonna say, man, is fucking just trying to, I don't know. I like to tell people to just think about stuff, but I don't want to. And I understand that. It's just like they just be cognizant that the fucking words that you're using, sometimes you're not using the right definition, or definition is shit, right? Or somebody has a different definition, or somebody's using a different definition, right? And then just try to understand where they're coming from. Like we can all agree on like fucking facts of life, dude. Like there's the way that people disagree, or the reason why people disagree, that's one of the main fucking things right there. It's fucking the fallacy of equivocation. And then the other thing is like everybody's got different life experiences, bro, and I get that, I understand that. And then so the probability in your mind of things developing a certain way, and the way that you act, and the things that you do, right, and you say, you know, they're gonna be different, right? Like Democrats want to do some shit this way, and then Republicans want to do some shit the other way, and then their fucking goal is the same. And it's like, okay, so can we objectively think about what the fucking evidence for the thing that you're proposing is? You know, like, it's not fucking, you know, it's like we have fucking evidence for shit. Like, we have tons of history, bro. Like, and then it's like, what is gonna work and what isn't? You know, like, I feel like fucking Democrats don't like fucking economics, dude. So it's like, bro, like, you can kind of tell, like, you can rationalize stuff like, how is this policy gonna affect the fucking the country? You know, it's like, just do some fucking evidence, bro. You can't just fucking wing that shit. You can't just fucking say like, oh, this is what I think, bro. We have fucking, like, we have empirical evidence about a bunch of bullshit, right? And then not only that, I mean, you can be logical about it too. And some shit just makes sense, dude. But we have to use the tools that we have, you know. And I don't know, it kind of grinds my gears. How two people can disagree on how to do one thing, right? And then like, how about just fucking talk about it, and then just both of you figure the fuck out what the best course of action is gonna be if you have the same fucking goal, right? And I understand competition, and then everybody's got their own interests, and then you gotta look for mine, and I look for yours, or whatever, right? But then at that point it's a different issue, right? But just being able to fucking communicate and actually come to an agreement, and you're both talking about something, and you're both on the same team, it's like, bro, just fucking stop trying to always win. If it's not about winning, right? If it's about winning, yeah, try to win, right? But if like, if the fucking issue is bigger than you, and it's your fucking stupid ego, right? Like, just so fucking, I don't know, try to be better, man. Try to use the tools that we have. I'm out.